Good morning students, welcome to the English class. I am Dr. Tripti Gupta from Shiv Jyoti Education Group Kota. So, today we are going to take up the revision session for chapter number 7, 9 and 10 of your first flight book. So, students, let us start with chapter number 7 here. As we know, chapter number 7, the glimpse of India. We have 3 parts. So, let us take part 1 here, a baker from Goa. Now, this particular part is basically has been written by Lucio Rodriguez, and it is a pen portrait of a traditional Goan village, okay, and where bakers and his position in the society has been described in this part. Okay. So, now let us come to some of the main key points of this chapter. First one is the Portuguese in Goa were lovers of bread. So, as we can see, they are fond of bread. It's the part of their culture, their fooding habits, okay, and these eaters of bread have now gone, but its makers still exist. So, still you can find the bakers are being there in Goan villages, and in the culture of Goa they are still the part of Goan culture. Okay. During the childhood days of the narrator, a baker used to be their friend, companion and guide. So, here the narrator has described his some of his childhood memories, where he has described complete he has narrated how a baker used to come, twice he used to cross there in front of their lane, okay, and he used to deliver breads in the morning, and these kids were very fascinated about getting their bangle breads, and they used to select it from his basket, and he used to so that is how he has described his beautiful fond memories about that baker, who was actually not only a baker, he proved to be a companion as well as a guide, and overall considered to be a friend of these kids. The baker came twice a day, once in the morning and again while returning home after finishing his selling. So, this was his frequent, like his routine way of visiting the house. He used to cross the lane of our narrator's house. Okay. So, in the morning when he used to come, these children used to just wake up from their beds, and they used to just go and visit the baker, and they used to select their bread, and it was a happening session for them, and he used to return back also while after selling his complete bread, okay, which he used to carry in his baskets. The jangling thud of the baker's bamboo woke up the sleeping children. So, this baker, he used to carry his basket, bamboo basket, and he used to carry a thud, bamboo, which was which was fused with the bells, and that bells used to play a jingling sound whenever he used to thud the bamboo. The loaves were delivered to the servants of the house. So, he used to, the servants of the house, they used to take bread loaves every in the morning itself for the as a supply for the complete day. Okay. The children would peep into the baker's basket for the bread bangles. And why children were being fascinated? Because they used to wait for this baker to get their bread bangles. These were sweet bread specially made for children. The children would eat bread with hot tea. So, this was their usual practice of the morning session when this baker used to visit their house lane. Okay. The marriages were incomplete without the popular bowl bread. So, this was another type of bread which was being baked by these bakers, that is bowl bread, and they were being used as a part of the feast which was given on marriage processions. Okay. Bolindas was a must during Christmas and all other festival. So, this the another kind of bread which was very popular was Bolenas, which was being commonly consumed and was the part of the festival celebration in during Christmas. Okay. The bakers wore a particular knee length frock known as kabai. Now, this was a traditional dress which was being which these bakers used to wear, and that was a long knee length frock, okay, tunic sort of dress, and that was known as kabai. Baking was a profitable profession. Bakers had a plump physique testifying to this. So, at those early olden days, baking was a very good a profession which used to give them proper nice earnings. Okay, they were being, and this was being proven because of the that the way they were having plumpy fat physique, that proves that they were being nicely doing in their business. Okay. The bakers collected their bills at the end of the month. So, this was how the accounting was being done with the help of, they used to keep the account of whatever has been sold to particular house on the wall on that particular house. They used to keep the record of the bread being supplied on the wall, and at the end of the month that complete record was being calculated, and accordingly the billing was being done at the end of the month. So, this is how the complete bakers, they were being carrying on their profession, and they were being the part of the culture of Goan village. So, this was about the part 1. Let us move to part 2 of this chapter, that is Coorg. Coorg is a heavenly place, okay, and this particular part of the chapter has been written by Lokesh Abrol. So, this is a beautiful description of a place, Coorg, and some of its cultural aspects and about its residents, inhabitants. Okay. So, Coorg or Kodagu, the smallest district of Karnataka, is a heavenly place. So, as we can see, the geographical features of Coorg is that basically it is a hilly area. Okay, it is the part of the rainforest area which has been there in Karnataka, and it is the smallest district of Karnataka, also known as Kodagu. The best season to visit it is from September to March. Okay. The people living there are probably the descendants of Arabs or Greeks. There are two theories about that who are these inhabitants, the residents of Coorg area. They are the people who are being considered to be the descendants of Arabs, because their dress is very much, it resembles Arabs, but according to another theory, they also are being considered to be the descendants of Greek people also. Okay. Their culture is apparent in their martial traditions, marriages and religious rites. So, because they this according to the second theory, that they belong to Greek descendants, okay, they are descendants of Greek. That is why there is a apparent, means visible, which can be seen that there is quite good big difference between the rest of the communities and the cultural aspects of Coorgs. They are very good in martial arts, okay, and their marriages, the rituals, the religious practices are quite different from the other people in the Karnataka. Okay. The Kudavus wear a long black embroidered coat called kupai. Now, this is a specific traditional dress which is been which they used to wear. It is a long black embroidered coat with a belt which has been embroidered, and this resembles the dressing style of Arabians also. Okay. So, that is why they are been are been considered to be the descendants of Arabs also. Okay. The Kurg regiment is one of the most decorated regiments in the Indian army. Okay. So, these people Kurgis are being considered to be brave men. They are there is a special regiment, Kurg regiment in the in Indian army, and they are being awarded the highest number of gallantry awards. Okay. So, that is how we identify them to be very brave people. Okay. That is a very brave community. Kudavus are the only people in India permitted to carry firearms without license, because they are being fighters, they are being through by their culture, by their inheritance, they are being fighters. Okay. And that is why they are being the part of the member of Kurigu community, they are being allowed to keep arms even without license. They can keep the arms with them. Okay. So, this privilege is been only given to Kurgis. They are so honest, they are so how nice with their human values and very brave people. Okay. The river Kaveri begins from the hills and forests of Kurg. So, river Kaveri is a very prominent physical feature which is playing a very vital role in that, in the beauty of it is enhancing the beauty of that particular region, the forests and the hill areas of Kurg region. A variety of plants, birds and animals can be seen there. Really a very diverse kind of wild animals, very good wild diversity and biodiversity is the part of these forests. Okay. The place offers a number of adventure sports for the tourists. Now, this is also another aspect of this region, that they are the tourists who used to come and visit Kurg, they are being given, they are having lots of opportunities to undergo through various sports, like they can go for canoeing, for river rafting. Okay, all these kinds of adventurous sports can be easily taken up by these tourists. The Tibetan monks are amongst many surprises that can be seen there. Okay. Now, Kurg, when one go to Brahmagiri hills in the Kurg region, okay, and there they can view a very panoramic view of that entire Kurg area. And here there is the India's largest Tibetan settlement is there, and there they can you can easily find Tibetan monks been there residing in that particular area. That is also a very surprising tourist attraction over there. So, this was about Kurg, and now let us move to the third part of this chapter, that is the tea from Assam. Now, this particular part of this chapter is basically, it's a kind of chapter has it first of all, this chapter has been written by Arup Kumar Datta, and it tells us about the northeast state Assam, where the tea plantation is carried on a very large scale. Okay. So, basically this this section is highlighting how the tea plantation is being taken up in Assam. Okay. Now, here there are two characters, one is Pranjal and another is Rajveer, and they are being the friends, and they are studying in one of the schools in Delhi, and now Pranjal is going back in his summer holidays, and he is accompanied by Rajveer, and they are visiting Assam, which is the Pranjal's native place, and Rajveer is coming along with him, and they are moving through by a train journey. Okay. Rajveer was busy looking at the beautiful scenery outside the train, and see, Rajveer was very fascinated. He was exploring the various regions which the train was been crossing through, the plains, the greenery and the fields, and whereas Pranjal was been busy in reading a thrill novel, detective novel. Okay. It was green everywhere as far as the eye could see. The soft green paddy bushes gave way to tea bushes. So, as the train was been moving, as Pranjal was looking at the greenery of the complete areas which they were being crossing, and when they were being approaching towards Assam, these green paddy fields, they were being they just shifted, and the place was being taken by the tea plantation. They could see the tea bushes everywhere. Assam was the largest concentration of tea plantation in the world. So, this is about another fact about Assam, that the highest plantation which has been done in a concentrated manner is being done in Assam in the complete world. The Chinese are said to have discovered tea. So, in ancient time it was being considered that tea has its origin from China. There are two stories, two legends regarding the origin, how this tea was been discovered. Okay, there is also an Indian legend saying that Bodhidharma discovered tea. Now, in the Chinese theory of discovery of tea, one of the king, he was being just his water was been boiling, and in those boiling water, tea leaves fell in that water, and the flavor was awesome, and he liked that flavor of tea when it was being boiled, and finally that's how that tea was being discovered. This is the Chinese theory, and there is another Indian legend accordingly, that Bodhidharma, one of the disciples of Buddha, he was been unable to concentrate on his prayer. So, he used to feel sleepy. So, he just cut out his eyelids, and he just threw them, and where his eyelids were being thrown, on that part of the land there were 5 plants, and those 5 plants were tea plants, and when the leaves were being boiled in water and it was being sipped, it used to make people to come out of their sleepiness. So, this is how another legend is. From China, tea came to European countries and then to Asian countries. So, actually Europeans, the Britishers and other European colonizers, they brought tea in India. Earlier it was been restricted to China only. Pranjal's father managed Deccaberry, a tea garden. So, Pranjal's father, he was a manager over there of a tea estate, Deccaberry. Now, this tea estate was being the special aspect, and Pranjal was being the part, he was being raised over there itself, while being the part of that particular tea estate. Their family used to reside within that tea estate. Okay. There were many tea pluckers around the tea bushes. So, both the boys, they just got down from their train, and both the parents of Pranjal, they were being there at the station to receive the boys, and finally they took their journey to Deccaberry, that was the tea estate managed by his father. So, when they arrived at that tea estate, he found that there were many tea pluckers. Okay. Those workers who used to pluck the newly grown tea leaves from the tea bushes. Okay. The best tea is obtained between May to July. Pranjal shares his his intelligence and his knowledge about tea, and he just confirmed it that between May to July, that is the season, the best time for harvesting the tea. Okay, so for plucking the tea leaves. Okay, so this is how finally this chapter is basically describing about the various aspects and processes of tea plantation and cultivation. Now, students, let us move to our next chapter now, that is chapter number 9, Madam Rides the Bus.